Imagine giving up millions, your entire legacy, just to hold the hand of someone the world says you're not supposed to love. Sounds insane, right? But what if I told you that sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't born in gilded ballrooms, but in hidden hallways where stolen glances carry more weight than gold? This is the forbidden love between Nathan, heir to a millionaire family, and Emily, a humble maid who is never supposed to be more than invisible. It's a story dripping with scandal, rejection, and humiliation. He was expected to marry someone of his own kind, protect the family's empire, keep up appearances. But instead, he risked everything. Because deep down, he knew, what's the point of owning the world if your heart feels bankrupt? She was humiliated in front of everyone, fired on the spot, left sobbing with nothing but her dignity and broken dreams. He was threatened with disinheritance, told he'd ruin the family name forever. And yet, they fought, against all odds, against all logic. Because sometimes love isn't a polite stroll down a rose-lined path. Sometimes it's a war that scars you, but also sets you free. So if you've ever felt torn between what's expected and what your heart screams for, if you've ever wondered whether real love is worth risking comfort, pride, even your own future, keep listening. Because Nathan and Emily's story isn't just about romance. It's about proving that the richest treasures in life have nothing to do with bank accounts. It's about hearts that chose each other when every rule said they shouldn't. And by the end of this, you might start questioning everything you thought you knew about sacrifice, destiny, and the miracle of finding a love that refuses to let go, no matter what it costs. Emily's first day at the Harrington mansion. It was Emily's first day at the lavish Harrington estate, and you could almost feel her heart racing. Imagine stepping from a cramped apartment where she lived with her widowed mother into a sprawling mansion where chandeliers glittered like 1,000 tiny stars. Her humble life felt even smaller under the weight of the millionaire family's gaze. Her hands trembled slightly as she smoothed her simple dress, hoping it wouldn't scream, "Poor maid," too loudly. But inside, Emily carried a strength no silk gown could ever match. The deep courage of someone who never had the luxury of being fragile. She walked through polished marble halls with the cautious grace of someone who knew exactly where she stood, or thought she did. Each step was a silent promise to her mother. "I'll help pay the rent, buy your medicine, make sure you never worry about groceries again." That heavy responsibility was also Emily's anchor. Have you ever done something that terrified you just to keep someone you love afloat? If not, you should try. Few things build character like putting another's needs above your comfort. As Mrs. Collins, the head housekeeper, led her through the mansion, Emily's eyes darted from ornate paintings to gold-framed mirrors. They seemed to whisper, "You don't belong here." Still, Emily lifted her chin and nodded politely, refusing to let all that luxury shake her. Sometimes, standing tall in places that dwarf you is how you secretly grow. Want a simple trick? Next time you feel small, straighten your spine. Often your mind will follow your body's lead. Her first real task was dusting the enormous library. Books taller than she was loomed on all sides, smelling of old ink and hidden stories. As she worked, she whispered promises to herself, almost like prayers. "You can do this, Emily. You're here for your mother. Giving up is not an option." Those words rolled through her mind like a steady mantra, calming her hands when fear tried to make them shake. We often forget that courage isn't loud. It's the quiet refusal to give up. She spotted family photos scattered among the leather-bound volumes. There was Mr. Harrington, the patriarch, whose eyes seemed to judge everything. Beside him stood his wife, Catherine, a woman so coldly beautiful she probably never knew a single humble day. Then there was Nathan, the heir, the golden boy. His smile looked dangerously warm, even in a photograph. Emily quickly turned away, scolding herself for letting her thoughts wander where they shouldn't. After all, this was the start of a forbidden love story waiting to happen. Lunch brought a different challenge. Emily stood with the other staff by the kitchen, clutching her modest sandwich. The cook laughed about some wealthy cousin's wedding, throwing around stories of million-dollar venues and designer dresses. Emily forced a smile. It's hard to laugh when your own shoes pinch because you couldn't afford new ones. But here's a secret. Even among the rich, hearts break and heal the same. Money can't buy a conscience or love that lasts. Throughout the day, little humiliations stacked up like delicate porcelain. The gardener smirked when she tripped over a hedge. The housekeeper sighed when Emily polished a table twice just to be sure. She swallowed her embarrassment, telling herself that one day she'd look back and see this as the beginning of her overcoming. Remember, every expert was once a beginner. Every success story started with awkward first steps. That's a universal truth, even in mansions. By late afternoon, Emily found a quiet moment by the kitchen window, watching the sun dip behind the fountain. Her heart ached, not just for home, but for the carefree girl she once was, unburdened by rich people's judgments. Yet, deep down, she knew that humility was shaping her into someone remarkable. Ever notice how pressure makes diamonds? Life's challenges do the same. They test, refine, and reveal brilliance. As she prepared to head to her tiny attic room, Emily replayed the day, the grandeur, the stares, the doubts. Then she pictured her mother smiling weakly from her worn chair, whispering, "I'm so proud of you, Emily." That memory was armor, protecting her from every snide glance. If you ever need motivation, anchor your struggles to someone's smile. It's the most powerful fuel there is. Just beyond the library door, Nathan stood with a folder, pausing as if caught by an invisible thread. His eyes seemed to search for something he couldn't name. And that, my friend, is how destiny often works, quietly, without fanfare, sneaking up on you when you're too busy worrying about dust on a bookshelf. So next time your heart feels uneasy, maybe it's not fear. Maybe it's fate, about to rewrite your story. Their first encounters. Emily didn't expect her second day to carry the weight of 1,000 heartbeats. She was carefully stacking ledgers in Mr. Harrington's office, trying not to breathe too loud. The scent of polished wood mixed with old money made her stomach flutter. That's when the doors swung open and in walked Nathan. The heir himself, the living symbol of everything she thought was out of reach. Forbidden love had just stepped into the room, uninvited. Nathan froze, clearly surprised to find someone there. His sharp blue eyes softened as they landed on Emily. He offered a polite smile that carried a spark of curiosity. Emily's hands fumbled, nearly dropping the papers. "Careful," he chuckled, stepping closer, his voice warm. Such a simple word, yet it nearly made her knees buckle. Funny how one gentle syllable from the right person can shake your whole foundation. Try to pull herself together, Emily apologized, cheeks burning hotter than the afternoon sun. "No harm done," Nathan replied with a casual shrug, leaning against the ornate desk like it was built just for him. His relaxed confidence only highlighted how different their worlds were. Emily felt every worn inch of her dress under his gaze. Yet something unspoken danced between them, a thread tying two hearts that shouldn't have been connected. They talked briefly about books, surprisingly. Nathan teased her for alphabetizing his father's library. "Most people can't even find the A's without help," he said. Emily laughed, shocked at her own boldness. That light, honest sound seemed to catch Nathan off guard, too. He studied her face a moment longer than manners allowed. Ever notice how laughter builds bridges faster than compliments? Try it. It's magic. When he left, the room felt emptier, like the sun had slipped behind a cloud. Emily scolded herself for reading into it. He was the millionaire's son, heir to unimaginable wealth. She was just a maid trying to help her mother. Yet as she gathered the papers, she couldn't stop the tiny hope fluttering inside. Isn't it strange how the heart roots for the impossible, for love stories that might break it? Downstairs, Emily tried to distract herself by scrubbing silver that already shone. Mrs. Collins noticed her dazed expression and smirked knowingly. Careful, dear. A young girl like you could be crushed in a house like this. Emily forced a smile, nodding. The older woman didn't realize how right she was. But here's a secret no one tells you. Sometimes hearts need to crack open to let real love pour in. That night, in her tiny attic bed, Emily replayed every detail. The surprise in Nathan's eyes, his gentle teasing, the casual way he leaned in. She hugged her thin pillow like it was a lifeline. Maybe you've done that too, holding something silly close, hoping it might guard a secret dream. Remember, it's okay to cherish delicate hopes, as long as you're willing to fight for them later. Meanwhile, Nathan found himself staring at his dinner plate longer than usual. His mother's voice was just noise as he puzzled over the maid with warm eyes and nervous hands. He'd met countless women at galas, dripping in jewels and fake laughter. But Emily? She was real, authentic, and that scared him more than any arranged engagement his mother might force. Sometimes, the heart's greatest threats come disguised as salvation. Neither knew it yet, but this was only the start. Emily fell asleep whispering prayers for strength, not realizing her biggest challenge wasn't the work, it was guarding her heart. And Nathan, heir to everything, was about to learn that some riches can't be measured by money. Stay close, because what comes next, neither of them, or anyone else, could have predicted. The quiet dance begins. The days that followed turned into a subtle dance neither fully understood. Nathan started inventing reasons to see Emily, dropping off ledgers himself instead of sending staff, lingering near the kitchen just to say good morning. Each encounter was tiny, almost laughably innocent, yet Emily's heart raced. It was like watching a flower crack through stone, gentle, persistent, and defying every odd. Nathan noticed details most heirs would overlook. How Emily tucked stray hairs behind her ear when nervous, or how her hands moved over silverware like a tiny orchestra. Once he offered her a glass of water, their fingers brushing. Such a simple touch, yet it sent a charge through her. Ever felt that spark so subtle you almost outhappened? That's where the best love stories begin. Emily tried to be cautious. She reminded herself daily of her humble place, her mother waiting at home who couldn't bear more heartbreak. But even as she repeated those warnings, her walls cracked. How could they not? With Nathan standing close, his eyes searching hers for truths neither dared speak. Sometimes the heart ignores every warning sign because deep down, it's starving for connection. They found excuses to stretch conversations longer. Nathan would ask about her favorite books, and Emily, blushing, admitted she loved old fairy tales, though they felt foolish in her life. Nathan laughed softly. Maybe real life could use more foolish hope. His words clung to her long after he walked away. If you've ever saved someone's passing comment like a treasure, you know exactly what she felt. Mrs. Collins noticed too. One afternoon, she gave Emily a look that was half warning, half pity. Careful, dear. Rich boys like that rarely end well for girls like us. Emily nodded, but inside she was already lost. Ever ignored advice you knew was right, simply because your heart had already decided? That's a lesson many learn the hard way, and still keep signing up for. There were moments when Emily caught Nathan staring from across a room. Once, during a formal dinner, she carried plates past him and felt his gaze more than the weight of the silver. He smiled, just a slight tilt of his lips, but it lit something inside her that wouldn't dim. These were the tiny seeds of forbidden love, watered by shy smiles and accidental touches, growing stronger in secret. One rainy afternoon, Nathan found her adjusting a crooked painting in the hallway. He stood there, watching her struggle with the frame, then stepped in to help. Their hands met on the canvas. They both laughed nervously, and for a breathless moment, time paused. It's in these small collisions that hearts decide, pull back or lean in. And in that fragile second, neither of them pulled back. Emily went to bed, replaying those moments like precious reels of film. Each smile, each gentle word stitched them closer. She knew heartbreak was almost guaranteed, but she also knew it was a story worth living. Because sometimes, against all sense and family expectation, you just have to see where love leads. Meanwhile, Nathan lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying the same moments. He'd never felt such a need to prove something, to show he could be more than an heir, more than a name. It scared him, this desire to prove he was simply a man craving real connection. But what's life without a little terror mixed with hope? Just like that, their small encounters promised bigger storms ahead. The garden walk and first kiss. One evening, after dinner service quieted and the house seemed to exhale, Nathan found Emily near the kitchen. Her apron was wrinkled, hair pulled up in a loose knot, stray strands framing flushed cheeks. "Walk with me," he asked, almost too softly. Emily's eyes widened. It was improper, risky, downright foolish. Yet her heart whispered, "Go." Because sometimes the most reckless choices carve the most beautiful paths. The night was unusually warm, moonlight spilling over the gardens like liquid silver. They walked side by side, speaking softly, afraid to shatter the fragile spell. Emily tried to keep her hands tucked in her apron, but they eventually fell loose by her sides, close enough to brush Nathan's. Ever felt that electric tension when hands hover, desperate to close the tiny gap? That's where courage is born. Nathan told her little secrets. How he hated some business dinners, how the weight of being the family heir felt like chains. Emily shared stories of her mother's laughter, their tiny apartment always smelling of warm bread. With each confession, layers fell away. They weren't just a maid and the son of a wealthy family anymore. They were two souls daring to see each other raw. At one point, Nathan stopped, turned to face her. The garden lights made his eyes shine almost mischievously. "You know this is insane, right? Us here." Emily tried to answer, but only laughter came, half delight, half nerves. He reached for her hand then, a simple act that felt as monumental as signing a treaty. Their fingers twined, skin on skin, sealing a promise neither could voice. They walked on, hands joined, hearts racing. Emily felt every heartbeat echo in Nathan's palm. She was humiliated before, but walked taller for it, she'd later think, though she couldn't admit it yet. Because standing beside Nathan, under those stars, she realized love wasn't about safety, it was about daring to leap. Eventually, they stopped near a marble bench half hidden by ivy. Nathan sat and gently pulled Emily down beside him. "Tell me something true," he urged. Emily hesitated, then whispered, "I'm terrified by how much I already feel for you." His eyes softened, thumb brushing over her knuckles. "Good, because I'm terrified too." Funny how admitting fear often opens a door to deeper connection. Try it sometime. You'd be amazed how vulnerability draws people closer. Silence stretched between them, comfortable and charged all at once. Then, almost as if carried by moonlight itself, Nathan leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. It wasn't practiced or polished, just honest, a little hungry, a little scared. Emily's heart soared and cracked all at once. It was the kind of kiss that burned itself into memory, the start of a love story neither could deny. When they finally pulled back, Emily touched her lips wide-eyed. Nathan just smiled, breathless. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" Emily could only nod. In that instant, she knew there was no turning back. They had crossed an invisible line, stepping from curiosity into something wild and real. Have you ever felt your whole future pivot on a single choice? That was their moment. As they walked back to the mansion, hands still linked, fear crept in. What would people say? What would Catherine do if she found out? But alongside the fear bloomed something bigger. The certainty that this was worth every whispered rumor. Emily had chosen love, despite every logical reason not to. And that choice would soon be tested in ways she couldn't yet imagine. In her attic room that night, Emily lay awake, fingers brushing her lips where Nathan had kissed her. She knew this was only the beginning of a saga that would test pride, loyalty, and forgiveness. Because when forbidden love dances with destiny, the universe finds a way to complicate things. And tomorrow, it would bring secrets, stolen glances, and more of this breathtaking, dangerous dance. Their secret romance. Their romance blossomed in stolen moments, hidden within the mansion's strict routine. Emily and Nathan became experts at hiding affection in plain sight. A quick brush of hands in the hallway, a playful wink when Mrs. Collins wasn't looking, a secret note tucked under a teacup. It was a risky game, yet somehow those tiny rebellions felt thrilling. Isn't it strange how danger makes the heart race faster? How forbidden love tastes sweeter just because it's forbidden. They exchanged handwritten notes, little declarations folded into delicate shapes. Emily would find them in her apron pocket. Lines like, "I'd trade every dollar of my family's fortune just to keep seeing you smile." Nathan's words were reckless, but sincere, shaking her to her core. Want to deepen someone's affection? Write them an old-fashioned letter. Handwritten truths carry a magic no text ever will. Sometimes they met in the grand library, pretending to browse books while stealing kisses in dark corners. The scent of leather and old paper mixed with whispered laughter. Once, Emily pressed a finger to Nathan's lips to quiet him, afraid a maid might overhear. He only grinned, eyes sparkling, and kissed her fingertip instead. Tiny acts like that build intimacy, not just physical, but the kind that says, "I see you, all of you." In the dim pantry light, Nathan would pull Emily close, his arms wrapping around her waist for a hurried embrace. Emily's heart thundered so loud she was sure it echoed off the shelves. "You know this is madness, right?" She'd whisper against his chest. Nathan would smile, brushing her cheek. "Maybe, but it's our madness." Funny how shared secrets can bind two people tighter than any public vow. Meanwhile, Emily's nights were filled with whispered prayers. "Please, God, protect us from being discovered. Let me keep this just a little longer." Because every day carried the risk of exposure. One wrong step, one look seen by the wrong eyes, and it could all fall apart. Ever felt that knife-edge tension between joy and fear? That was the price of their story. A humble maid and a millionaire's son daring to defy gravity. Nathan wrestled with guilt and excitement. He knew his mother would see Emily as nothing more than a social climber, a maid reaching far above her place. Yet when he was with her, titles vanished. It was just a man in love with a woman, stripped of heirlooms and expectations. Ever let love guide you somewhere completely illogical? Those journeys often matter most. Even Mrs. Collins, loyal to the family for decades, started noticing how Nathan's eyes found Emily in crowded rooms. She offered Emily quiet warnings. "Be careful, child. Love like this, it can break more than hearts. It can break futures." Emily nodded respectfully, but inside burned a stubborn spark. Giving up had never been her nature, not when she fought for her mother's medicine. Certainly not for this. One late evening, after Nathan kissed her neck in the kitchen, Emily caught her reflection in a pot's shiny surface. Her cheeks glowed, eyes bright with secret delight. That's when she knew she was in too deep. But strangely, she didn't want out. Sometimes love is a jump off a cliff, and once your feet leave the ledge, all you can do is trust the fall. Their meetings grew more reckless. A brush of his hand on her back as she served dinner, a quick kiss in the linen closet. Each stolen moment fueled the fire, weaving memories no one could erase. They were proving daily that love could bloom even in shadows, choosing them despite money, status, every rational argument. Little did they know, the mansion's walls carried whispers. Catherine's sharp eyes lingered on Emily more often, her mouth tightening into suspicion. The air seemed to hum with coming storms. And that's the trouble with secrets. They rarely stay buried. In their stolen paradise, neither Emily nor Nathan saw how close the end of innocence truly was. The day of the scandal. It was a sunlit afternoon that betrayed the storm inside. Emily thought it was just another day. She floated through the grand hall, her heart light with Nathan's last whispered, "I love you." But fate has a cruel sense of timing. Catherine swept into the room without warning, her eyes sharp as shattered glass, catching Emily and Nathan locked in a tender kiss. In that instant, their secret burst open. Ever had your world implode in a single heartbeat? That's how fragile forbidden love can be. Silence cut like a blade. Catherine's face twisted with rage, her voice slicing through the room. "How dare you disgrace this family? With a maid?" The word dripped with contempt. Emily's cheeks burned hotter than a slap, humiliation wrapping around her throat. Nathan tried to speak, but his mother's glare froze him. There's a special cruelty in being humiliated not privately, but in the grand hall where portraits of ancestors seem to sneer down too. Emily's hands shook as she struggled to stand tall. Catherine stalked forward, every step powered by family pride. "Pack your things. You're finished here. I won't have you sinking your claws into my son's future." Each word fell like a hammer. Emily blinked back tears, heartbreaking not just for herself, but for Nathan, the heir who risked so much for a humble maid who never belonged in marble corridors. Nathan stepped forward, shoulders squared, voice cracking but strong. "Mother, stop. This is my choice. I love her." Catherine spun on him, eyes ablaze. "You throw away your inheritance for this?" The pause was sharp, meant to slice. Emily felt her chest cave in. She always knew love with Nathan meant choosing a path of thorns, but hearing it out loud still cut deep. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones our hearts already suspect. Tears rolled down Emily's cheeks despite her best effort. "I'll go," she whispered, voice small but resolute, because she wouldn't let Nathan lose everything. It was her turn to be strong. Nathan reached for her hand, but Catherine pulled him back, as if shielding him from disease. Emily locked eyes with him one last time, a silent promise passed between them. This wasn't the end. Ever felt your heart split in two, one half fleeing, the other staying behind? That's what sacrifice for love feels like. Outside, Emily stumbled down the mansion steps. Her small bag clutched her chest. The gardener paused mid-trim, eyes wide with gossip. She wanted to disappear. Every curious glance from staff felt like another dagger. But she lifted her chin. She was humiliated, rejected, heart shattered. But she wouldn't crumble. There's power in leaving with dignity when the world expects you to crawl. Inside, Nathan's world tilted dangerously. Catherine's words were venom, promising to cut him off from the family fortune, the business empire, everything. "She's nobody, Nathan. Think of your legacy." But legacy meant little when his heart already beat outside the mansion walls, walking alone down the gravel drive. If you've ever faced a moment choosing between comfort and love, you know how terrifying and clarifying it can be. Emily returned to her tiny apartment that night, her mother fussing over tear-streaked cheeks. "Was it worth it, darling? All this pain?" Emily couldn't answer. Love stories like hers were never simple. They were full of scars, broken hearts, battered pride. Yet even through the ache, she sensed this wasn't the final chapter. Some stories have to break before they rebuild. Nathan stood at his bedroom window long after dark, staring into the night. He could almost see Emily there, woven into the shadows. The walls, once symbols of privilege, now felt like prison bars. He'd chosen love, yes, but would he be brave enough to act on it, to prove what they shared was stronger than money, stronger than fear? That question burned in his chest, demanding an answer. The next morning, he paced the marble floors until dawn. Everywhere he looked, reminders of his millionaire family mocked him. Oil portraits, gold-framed ledgers promising a future soaked in wealth. None of it felt real anymore. What was an empire if the woman he loved was out there alone, nursing a broken heart because of choices he hadn't yet made? Sometimes, the toughest prisons aren't made of stone, but expectation. Catherine tried to tether him back to her dream. She appeared in doorways with tearful eyes, speaking of reputation, of humiliation. Nathan, she's just a maid. Think of your future. The board will never accept her. But every plea only drove Nathan deeper into silent rebellion. Ever reach a point where losing comfort is worth it just to reclaim your soul? At dinner, Catherine rattled on about galas, mergers, arranged marriages. Nathan set down his fork, hands steady. "Mother, I'm leaving." Her face drained faster than spilled wine. "Leaving? For that girl? You give up all this?" He nodded calmly. "Yes, because all this means nothing if my heart isn't in it." Ever notice how the simplest truths can weigh more than mountains? Catherine sobbed, threatened, then raged. "Fine, walk away, but don't come crawling back when she ruins you." Nathan's lips curved into the saddest smile. "I'm not walking toward ruin, Mother. I'm walking toward life." Those words cut the last fragile tie between them. He stood, walked out of the mansion, his mansion, without packing a single bag. Freedom doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it looks like losing everything you once thought mattered. Outside, under a velvet sky, Nathan inhaled air that felt richer than any bank vault. He realized love is a decision made again and again, especially when it hurts. If you ever doubt that, think of all those who left kingdoms for affection, who chose heart over crown. Stories like that fill history books, and his story was about to join them. Against all odds, against the empire he was raised to inherit, he had chosen Emily. He arrived at her small apartment with nothing but a racing heart. When Emily opened the door, her eyes widened. Nathan fell to one knee, hands trembling. "Emily, I left everything behind, because none of it matters if it doesn't include you. Will you start over with me? Even if it means tiny apartments and second-hand furniture." Her tears fell, but they weren't tears of humiliation anymore. They were tears of finally being chosen. Emily dropped to the floor beside him, hugging him so tight it stole his breath. "Yes, 1,000 times yes. We'll build something real, Nathan. Something no one can buy or tear down. Isn't that the truest test? To see love stand strong when stripped of wealth, titles, and expectation. In that cramped hallway, two people forged a bond stronger than any diamond necklace Catherine could flaunt. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring, only that together they were braver than apart. Nathan pressed his forehead to Emily's, whispering, "This is our new beginning. Our chance to prove love doesn't just survive, it conquers." Little did they realize the greatest trials and sweetest victories still lay ahead, waiting in the glow of their modest future. Their life in the small apartment. Nathan and Emily's new life started in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of old paint and long-postponed dreams. Gone were the marble halls and crystal chandeliers, replaced by creaky wooden floors and thin walls that carried neighbors' laughter and midnight arguments. But inside that small space, love grew like ivy, wrapping itself around every imperfection. Isn't it funny how sometimes the humblest places witness the grandest stories of overcoming and redemption? Their furniture was mostly mismatched pieces found at thrift stores. The couch had a tear on the side, the coffee table wobbled, and their bed groaned under the slightest movement. But Nathan would grin, fixing the table with borrowed tools, saying, "At least we'll always remember how we started." If you're ever tempted to envy polished mansions, remember, luxury can't touch the laughter that fills a tiny, imperfect home. Money was tight. Nathan found work consulting for smaller firms, while Emily cleaned houses to help pay rent. They often shared cheap pasta by candlelight, turning necessity into romance. Once, Emily joked, "Good thing we're not picky eaters." Nathan laughed, pulling her close. We have each other. That's a feast. Isn't it beautiful how love reframes even the hardest struggles into shared victories? Some nights, Emily worried. What if Nathan regretted trading his empire for her? What if one morning he missed the fine wine and tailored suits? She whispered these fears into the darkness. Nathan would kiss her forehead and say, "Giving up was never an option, Emily. Choosing you was the easiest hard choice I ever made." Those words became her anchor on stormy days. They created new traditions: Saturday walks to the farmer's market, lazy Sundays trying to cook complicated meals, evenings reading dog-eared books to each other. Their love story stitched itself together through small, ordinary moments. Want to build a bond that outlasts glamour? Do the mundane things together. Wash dishes, pay bills, dance in the living room for no reason. That's how you prove love beyond money. But life wasn't all warm moments. Bills stacked up, stress flared. Once, after a tense argument about overdue rent, Emily locked herself in the bathroom and cried. Nathan slipped a note under the door. "I love you more than I hate this struggle. Open up. Let's face it together." Emily opened the door sobbing, realizing love isn't shown by how well you avoid storms, but by how tightly you hold each other through them. Their humble life healed old wounds. Emily no longer feared humiliation. She stood taller, confident in Nathan's unwavering choice. And Nathan found a pride deeper than stock portfolios. Pride in building a life with his own two hands, proving to himself that love was worth more than legacy. If you ever wonder what real wealth looks like, watch a couple laugh over broken furniture, planning how to fix it together. One night, Emily caught Nathan staring at her with misty eyes. "What?" she asked, tucking her hair behind her ear. "Just you. This. Us. I gave up millions, and I'd do it again every single day." Her heart squeezed, so tight tears blurred her vision. Right then, she understood. Against all odds, they had proved the deepest truth, that the richest treasures often were second-hand clothes. Meanwhile, Catherine's absence hung like a ghost in their little apartment. Neither spoke of her, but they both felt her shadow. Would she ever understand? Forgive? Accept that their love story wasn't a scandal, but a triumph? The question hovered in every quiet pause. Because stories like theirs rarely end neatly. They evolve, heal, surprise. The next knock on their door could change everything. Catherine's arrival. It was a gray afternoon when an unexpected knock echoed through the apartment. Emily peeked out and froze. There stood Catherine, regal even without her pearls, clutching her purse like it held her composure. Emily's heart jumped in her throat. Nathan came up behind her. "It's my mother." 2 months ago, those words would have spelled disaster. Today, they might mean something different, maybe even hope. Catherine stepped inside hesitantly, eyes darting around the cramped living room as if struggling to process the reality of her son's new world. "It's smaller than I expected," she said, voice brittle. Nathan tensed, ready to defend their humble life, but Emily touched his arm. Sometimes grace speaks louder than pride. She offered Catherine tea in a chipped mug. Funny how hospitality often paves the way back to forgiveness. They sat awkwardly. Catherine twisted her hands in her lap. Finally, she whispered, "I was wrong, Nathan. About everything. About her." Tears shimmered on her lashes. "Seeing you two together, I see now it's not money that makes a home. It's love. And I try to destroy that." Her admission cracked something open in the tiny room, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Emily's eyes filled. She reached across the table, covering Catherine's trembling hand. "We never want to hurt you. We just chose each other." That simple truth carried more weight than 1,000 speeches. Ever noticed how humble confessions soften even the hardest hearts? Try it. Sometimes saying, "I was scared," heals more than "I was right." Nathan swallowed hard. "Mother, our life is messy, unpredictable, but I've never been happier. Emily's love did what money never could. It made me whole. Catherine pressed her hand to her mouth, a sob escaping. In that raw moment, titles disappeared. They were just a mother and son bridging a gap pride had dug. Catherine began visiting more in the weeks that followed. She brought small gifts, a pie from the bakery, fresh flowers for the windowsill. Each offering was her way of saying, "I'm sorry," without having to say the words. Emily welcomed her with open arms, knowing reconciliation often blooms in small, awkward steps. If you ever seek forgiveness, start there, with quiet humility, not grand gestures. One Saturday morning, they found Catherine quietly seated on their worn couch, tears sliding down her cheeks as she watched them cook breakfast. "I see it now," she whispered. "I see why you chose this. Chose her. She loves you honestly. No deals. No musks. Just heart." Emily hugged her gently, feeling generations of pride crumble under the weight of real affection. Catherine began telling stories of her own lost love, a boy she once adored but gave up for wealth and duty. Her voice trembled with regret. "I thought I was protecting you from that kind of pain, but I nearly robbed you of everything real." Ever wonder how many cold hearts are actually old wounds wearing armor? Remember, harshness often hides the softest sorrow. Over dinners squeezed around their tiny table, laughter began to fill the spaces where tension once lived. They proved that forgiveness was possible, that even a broken love story bruised by rejection and pride could heal. Catherine no longer saw Emily as the maid who stole her son, but as the woman who gave him back to life. Together, they were stitching their torn family back together. The wedding day. Spring painted the town in soft color when Nathan and Emily decided to marry. They chose a friend's garden behind a modest cafe. No chandeliers, no string quartet, just sunlight through trees and the sound of pure joy. Emily wore a simple white dress. She altered herself, hands trembling as she adjusted the hem. "Our forbidden love brought us low," she whispered to Nathan, "but now look how tall we stand." Guests arrived in handfuls, neighbors, old friends, even Mrs. Collins from the mansion, wiping tears as she sat. Catherine stood to the side at first, nervous, proud. When Emily reached out and pulled her close, the last walls fell. Catherine embraced her as a daughter, no longer with resistance, but with reverence. Even the proudest hearts can kneel before real love. Nathan's vows were simple, but they hit harder than any diamond ring. "I chose you over expectations, over comfort, over legacy. And I'll keep choosing you in every storm, in every silence, in every wrinkle." Emily's voice cracked as she promised the same. They were sealing a future that had already walked through fire and come out stronger for it. As they exchanged rings, birds sang above them, as if nature itself offered its blessing. Emily's heart nearly burst when Nathan whispered, "Giving up was never an option, my love." Those words had carried them through slammed doors and tearful nights. Now, they were a vow, a reminder that the heart, once humiliated, could still shine like gold. They celebrated with mismatched plates and homemade cake. Catherine raised a toast, her voice unsteady, to a love stronger than money, deeper than pride, and more healing than time. To forgiveness. To this family. Emily held her hand tightly. Humility had birthed the sweetest redemption of all. Later that night, they danced under fading sun. No music, just heartbeats. Emily giggled when Nathan tried to twirl her and nearly fell. "Careful," she whispered. "I can't have my new husband injured on day one." He smiled, kissing her forehead. "I'd still have you, even bruised. That's real love. Not flawless, but faithful. So tell me, what's stopping you from choosing a love, a dream, or even a life that sets your soul on fire, even if the world calls you reckless?" Because Emily and Nathan proved that sometimes, to gain everything that matters, you must lose everything others think you need. Have you ever let fear, expectations, or comfort keep you from chasing the one thing that truly makes you come alive? What if years from now, you look back and realize you gave up joy just to stay safe? Don't just hear their story and say, "That's sweet." Let it challenge you. Let it call you into something bold, whether that's a relationship, a dream, or simply being honest about your heart. Because safety never writes great stories. But love? Love does. If you've ever loved against the odds, or wanted to, share your story below. Your courage might unlock someone else's. And if you want more stories like this one, stories that stir your soul and prove that love, healing, and hope still win, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This is just the beginning of a journey that might just change your own.